It's a beautiful day outside, as we all know. And you probably know the answer has been, unrealistically, when the second floor is asked, why do we have taxes so high in New York State? It's the weather. Everybody knows it's not the weather. Individuals, 189,000, couldn't afford to live here last year. That's why they're leaving the state of New York. If you talk about blaming people, one side or another, in terms of why we have high taxes here, I think we can take credit for the STAR program. I think we can take credit for the Enhanced STAR program. I think we can take credit for doing everything we can on this side of the aisle to get the message out. We live in upstate New York. Property taxes are out of control in upstate New York, and we need some resolve to that particular problem. But every time we take one step forward with these proposals, and we're able to convince the other side, kicking and screaming, to do them, the executive level, the assembly, and this body now takes 2 steps backwards. That's the reason why they continue to be high taxes. Because you could do all the events that make it look better and feel better and actually be better, and then take 2 steps backwards to make it worse. If you look at the situation when this new majority took place, here are majorities. Realize this: we have one voice from one affiliation, from one region of the state, controlling the state of New York. And I remember last year during the campaigns, don't worry about upstate New York, we're going to take care of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I listen, I don't even hear crickets. I hear silence for any upstate economic expansion plan, creating jobs, workers' compensation reform, broadband in my district in the 49th. We couldn't even get Amazon there. We can't create 25,000 jobs or $27 billion. We don't have any broadband infrastructure in the corners of my district. As I've said before, we don't even have cell phone usage. You need homing pigeons or smoke signals to get an emergency vehicle. It's dangerous to live in the upper parts of my particular district. When you got elected, the executive said, on the agenda that progressive, and I call it regressive because progressive has progress in it. If your agenda was a time machine, it would only go backwards in time, because that's what the agenda has been for 6 months here, for this session. Social experimentation. Either tax something or legalize it. We're legalizing marijuana. We want to legalize injection sites. We want to legalize prostitution. We want to legalize driver's licenses for people who break the law. Education with taxpayers' money. Health care. And I know what the end run is on that. Because if you give them everything else, you know what? They deserve to decide on their elected officials in their government. We're going to have to give them voters' rights. The Business Council was wrong. They were playing the short-term game. The short-term game is, yeah, they'll create some low-level jobs. The long-term game is when you get them elected, they're going to vote for that regressive, radical, liberal agenda that's gotten us to the point where 200,000 people left the state of New York last year, 1 million over the last 8 years. There'll be 500,000 who left after we're done with this agenda this particular year. Think about it. We're number 1 in taxes overall, or 2. We're in the top 5 at least. We're number 1 in Tax Freedom Day in New York State. We got there finally. We were number 2. Connecticut and Massachusetts or New Jersey were tied, I believe. Do you know, I think it's at least at the end of May or June, for those people who are watching, the taxpayers, you're number 1 in Tax Freedom Day in New York State. For 5.5 to 6 months, all of your money goes to government, local, state, and federal. You only take $1 home the end of May or June. $1 to pay your mortgage, $1 to pay your kids' college tuition, $1 to buy a vehicle to get to work. That's what tax freedom represents. Well, socialization will make it 12 months. Why don't we just give all their money for all 12 months and you dole it out like we want to do with rent control when that comes up, what AOC wants to do, the cows, they can't do their business, the planes can't fly. It's not going to work.